Sony, Panasonic, Fuji, Nikon. What do all of them have that Canon didn't for the last 5 years? A cropped sensor mirrorless camera that wasn't just a full frame camera with a 4K crop. Enter the EOS R7. Welcome to the club, Canon. This is the mirrorless 7D camera, essentially, which happened to be my first DSLR and a true workhorse for me for several years and for several other indie filmmakers. The R7 has a brand new 32.5 megapixel APS-C sensor, which is the same megapixels as the 90D, which came out a few years ago. It also has 5-axis IBIS, which stands for in-body image stabilization, but I think it should really stand for I bet it's so wobbly, because Canon has the most wobble in the market. It's true. For some reason, on Canon cameras with their IBIS, you can see a lot of wobble and distortion on the edges of the frame when you're using especially wide-angle lenses. Canon recently had a firmware update for the R5, which solves this. I think they're trying to make it better through firmware. It's something that they can totally fix in the future, and this is me telling Canon, please fix it, please make it better, because other camera companies don't have this issue. The R7 is a true hybrid camera with the ability to shoot amazing photos at high speeds up to 30 frames per second in electronic shutter mode and 15 frames per second in mechanical. Also, it has this really cool ability to cover the sensor with the curtain there. When I turn the camera off, the shutter goes in front of the sensor, which is really handy dandy, because that means when you're exchanging lenses, like this kit lens here, and you're taking it on and off, you don't have to worry about dust getting on your sensor. I love this feature. All of the EOS R cameras have the ability to do this. If you don't want to do this, you can turn it off with a menu. Why don't you do this, Sony? That would make so much more sense. The R7 also has the best autofocus in a Canon camera, using the same processor and algorithms from the flagship R3 camera, which is a $5,500 camera from Canon. As great as the autofocus is and the IBIS performance, I have not been that impressed with the R7's image taking. It's just a bit lackluster, and even though this camera is newer, it doesn't have the new stacked sensor technology, which many other cameras are using now. Stacked sensor technology gives better dynamic range and sharpness overall. I just wish they put it in here, but it's a cheap, affordable camera at $1,500, so I'm not gonna be too mad about it. Even though I haven't been all that impressed with the photo quality on this camera, the video quality is incredible for the size and price. This camera has the ability to do a 7K to 4K down res, which basically gives you some of the sharpest image quality you can get on a Canon camera next to the R5 and the R5C. And it's blowing my mind again because it's only $1,500, and look how small it is. Could you imagine how small this would look if I were Shaq? It'd be microscopic. So yes, the 4K modes are great on here. You can shoot 4K at 60 frames per second, as well as the 4K fine mode up to 30 frames per second. That's the 7K to 4K down res. You can shoot Canon Log 3 with this camera in 10-bit 422. Now it is an HEVC codec. If you don't know all these things, basically HEVC is H.265, which is a new type of compression. Certain computers don't play it very well, so make sure you're using the right computer if you're buying this camera. I would recommend an Apple Silicon computer if you have the budget for it. Even a cheap MacBook Air could cut through this footage like butter using Resolve or Final Cut. I can't speak to Premiere because it's slow as molasses. Good luck to you, Premiere. In addition to all the resolution modes on this camera for video, the video autofocus performance, just like the photo performance, is phenomenal. It has eye-tracking autofocus, and it is incredibly reliable, again, because it's using the top-of-the-line algorithm and processing power from the R3 from Canon, which is actually better than even the $5,000 cinema cameras like the R5C from Canon. Now, Chris is actually operating the C500 Mark II right now. It's his personal unit, and he loves it, and we love it. As you can see, the image quality looks incredible. I love the cinema cameras from Canon, and I am an owner of the C70, and we use that as well for a lot of our shots. And to me, selfishly, this is a wonderful B or C camera to those cinema cameras. Again, like I said, with Soundstripe, we use Chris's C500, and it looks great. Next to that, this is a wonderful little gimbal camera. We actually did a whole review using the RS3 and this camera, so if you want to see what this camera looks like on a gimbal, check that video out. We'll link it in the description below. I've owned this camera for only about a month, but I've actually used it on 4 different client projects, and it's been an incredible, reliable little camera for me. And I think if you're a professional cinematographer using especially a Canon camera, this is a wonderful little side camera, and again, for the price point, you can't beat it. I think this is much better, in my opinion, as a B camera than the EOS R original. This isn't as cropped as the EOS R. The EOS R has a 1.8x crop, which is almost micro four thirds level. This is only a 1.56-ish, which is super 35 crop. And we actually were able to use this camera and shoot it in an actual cinematic way. We used anamorphic lenses with a PL adapter. And if you want to see that video, we'll also link that down in the description below. We did some incredible tests in Resolve, and Chris Haggerty, our DP here at Soundstripe, shot it beautifully and made it look amazing with the anamorphic lenses. Overall, I've just been so impressed with the quality of this. It can be a tiny little setup like this on a gimbal. It's lightweight, doesn't hurt your back, but it can also be rigged out and put a monitor on it and an anamorphic lens and use it as a cinema tool. In a lot of ways, and I was just telling Chris this before we started rolling, I kind of want to just sell my C70 and buy like 3 of these, because that would maybe be more useful the way I shoot, at least. That's kind of crazy talk, isn't it?